I woke to the sharp scent of something strange, metallic and bitter, and a terrifying lightness around my neck that made my heart plummet. The mirror did not lie. My hair, my waist length, carefully tended chestnut hair, was gone, hacked away in ragged, uneven clumps. My first thought was that I had been robbed, violated in my own bed. But then I saw them. Lying neatly on my dresser were the craft scissors my mother used for cutting old receipts. Next to them, a sticky note landed like a slap. You will still look fine. Focus on your speech for Clara's big day. I stood frozen, the severed strands still littering my pillow like the ghosts of a part of me that had died in my sleep. That wedding was supposed to be my one chance to stand before the people who had overlooked me for years, to finally wear the navy silk dress I bought with my own salary, to not ask for a single person's approval, and to speak with a confidence they had never allowed me. Instead, I looked like I had lost a fight with a lawnmower. When I walked into the kitchen, my father barely glanced up from his newspaper. "Oh, good, you are up," he said. "Less hair makes your face look less distracting anyway. The attention is not supposed to be on you." My mother sipped her coffee, her gaze cool. "It is Clara's wedding. Let her shine. Let her shine." They spoke as if I were some emergent threat to the sun itself, as if my very presence in a nice dress could ruin the entire celestial event. Let me explain. I was the daughter they managed, never the one they celebrated. Clara received the designer dresses and violin lessons. I received the hand-me-downs and lectures on gratitude. Clara was gifted a graduation trip to Paris. I was told to work weekends to save for college, which I did. I moved out at 19, balanced 2 jobs, and still, I RSVP'd yes to this wedding because I held a foolish hope that maybe, just maybe, it could be one of those rare family moments where no one was competing. But instead, they had stirred NyQuil into a cup of chamomile tea, then cut my hair while I slept. My own parents. My roommate, Maya, rushed over in a panic after I called her, my voice a tremor I could not control. She gasped when she saw me, her hands flying to her mouth. "They did this to you on purpose." I could only nod, the movement stiff and painful. Maya was silent for a long moment, her expression hardening from shock to fury. Then she pulled out her phone. "Okay, we are not going to the wedding like this. We are going to do something better." Initially, I did not want revenge. I just wanted an ocean of distance between me and them. But something shifted when Maya helped me listen to a voice memo, something I had never intended for anyone else to hear. It was from a recording I had made weeks ago, a habit I had developed to document small, sharp moments for my therapist. My mother's voice, complaining that I was a distraction after I posted a photo from a friend's bridal shower. My father's voice, lecturing me that pretty girls ruin weddings with their jealousy. At the time, they were just painful jabs. Listening back with Maya, they formed a dark, deliberate pattern. And then Maya said, "You know, there is a way to make them listen." That night, a decision settled in my bones. I would go to the wedding, but not as the daughter they expected. I would not wear the dress they sneered at. I would not speak the saccharine words they had approved for Clara's toast. I would take their script and I would burn it. And that would only be the beginning. I did not sleep that night. Maya, with a determined set to her jaw, worked for hours, evening out the butchered mess into a sleek, edgy bob. "You look like someone who is about to dismantle a dynasty," she whispered as she styled the last piece into place. By morning, I had a plan. I arrived at the sprawling vineyard estate early, before the chaos began. Of course, they had picked something so photogenic. Clara's dream wedding was purchased with my parents' savings, my mother's brittle smiles, and my father's unshakable pride in his real daughter. I was cast as a side character, but not today. I had rehearsed the speech I was meant to give, some hallmark nonsense about sisterhood and unbreakable bonds. Instead, during the rehearsal brunch, when the mood was warm and self-satisfied, I walked to the microphone. "Hi, everyone," I began. The air in the room shifted. My mother's smile twitched. "I know I am not the favorite daughter. That has never been a secret. But I am here to say something different today. I want to talk about what happens behind the gilded frames of family portraits. When the people who say they love you will literally cut you down to keep you from outshining someone else. When they drug you with tea so you sleep soundly through the sabotage. When your very existence is treated as a threat to the child they actually love." Gasps rippled through the room. An uncle dropped his fork with a clatter. My father stood up, his face thunderous. "Melissa, that is enough. But I was not finished. You do not get to rewrite who I am anymore. You do not get to trim me down to a more manageable size, to hide me, or to pretend this did not happen." I held up my phone and pressed play. My mother's voice, cold and clear, filled the stunned silence. She thinks she will look better than Clara. We will fix that. Then my father's low chuckle. We will just cut it while she sleeps. Girls like her need to be reminded of their place. The silence that followed was absolute, deafening. Guests lowered their forks, turning to stare at my parents with expressions of pure horror. I ended my speech. You taught me to feel shame. Now I am teaching you consequences. Security escorted me out as my parents began to shout. My sister, Clara, was in tears, but not for me. She was weeping because, as she shrieked, this was going to ruin her photos. It was not over. Within 24 hours, the video was a wildfire. Maya had uploaded the full, unedited clip, captioned, "This is what happens when a family weaponizes love." It exploded. Millions of views. It was reposted by celebrities. TikTokers lip-synced my final lines. My DMs flooded with messages from strangers. Thank you for saying what I never could. A week later, I received an email from the editor of a prominent wedding magazine. Your story is not just brave, it is a statement we want to feature. How would you feel about a photo shoot and an article titled "The Sister They Tried to Erase"? I said yes. The photo shoot was a reclamation of everything my parents had tried to steal. It was elegant, powerful, and unapologetically me. They styled my new hair, did my makeup, and draped me in gowns that shimmered with defiance. That was the start of the second chapter of my life. 3 months passed. My family did not reach out. Not to apologize, not to explain. They did not need to. The world was watching them now. My video had become a cultural touchstone, debated on talk shows and analyzed in blogs. I was suddenly the face of every child who had ever been dimmed in favor of a shinier sibling. But I did not want fame. I wanted freedom. And I wanted to ensure they could never silence another person again. It began with an email from a woman named Evelyn Reed, CEO of a high-end fashion house that specialized in rebranding damaged reputations through radical truth. Her own daughter had endured something similar. She offered me a job, not as a model, but as the creative director for a new campaign called "You Can't Cut Power." Suddenly, my life was a whirlwind of photo shoots, press tour, and requests for TEDx talks. I was turning my pain into a platform. Meanwhile, the fallout for my family was swift and predictable. Their suburban neighborhood grew cold. Wedding guests who had cheered for Clara now averted their eyes at the grocery store. The priest who officiated the ceremony publicly stated that Clara should have been seeking forgiveness, not validation. Even Clara's new husband, Greg, who had remained silent through the scandal, walked out 6 weeks after the wedding. He had apparently discovered a file of screenshots on her laptop, hundreds of cruel comments she had written about me from anonymous accounts. She was not just complicit, she was obsessed. And now, she was alone. I wish I could say that brought me satisfaction, but the truth was I no longer cared. I was too busy building something they could never touch. The real revenge came when Evelyn made me another offer. "We are opening our first creative office in your hometown. Want to run it?" I laughed. "Are you serious?" She nodded, her eyes glinting. "Imagine it. Same town, but this time you are the one people are desperate to impress." So I did it. We opened a sleek, sunlit creative space on the very downtown street my parents used to drag me down on the way to Clara's piano recitals. This time, the storefront had a giant window decal that read, "Power cannot be cut." The week we launched, my team hosted an open house. Local press came, along with activists, survivors, and even a few of my old high school classmates who once mocked my quiet nature, now humbly asking about internships. The cherry on top was when my parents walked in uninvited and unannounced. My mother hid behind oversized sunglasses. My father looked as though he had aged a decade. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was the public exposure. Or maybe it was just the loss of control. They did not seem to recognize the woman standing at the front of the room, poised and powerful. They tried to feign normalcy. "We are so proud of you," my mother said, her voice a soft, desperate whisper. I smiled, a calm, genuine smile. "That is funny. The last time you were proud of me, I think I still had braces." My dad attempted a weak chuckle. "We all make mistakes. Families heal, right?" I walked over to the front desk and picked up a small, branded card. "Would you like to leave something in our feedback box? We take all comments very seriously here." They just blinked, stunned into silence. "Otherwise," I continued, my voice even, "I have a room full of people I deeply respect waiting to hear me speak." As I turned my back on them, I saw them standing there, utterly out of place, shrinking in the space I now commanded. I did not need to yell. I did not need to shame them. The building, the people, the success, It was all louder than any insult I could ever voice. Just as they were shuffling out the glass doors, I called after them. By the way, the next time you think of cutting down one daughter to elevate another, remember this. Scissors grow dull, but some girls just get sharper. They never came back. I never needed them to. I had finally learned that they did not get to define my beauty. They did not get to define my power. And they had never, ever had the right to define my worth. Not with scissors, not with silence, not ever again.